Hello, you're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. Because it's more fun to believe. Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening to another experience of Me and Paranormal You. This is your buddy, Ryan Singer. I am I'm always excited, it seems like. I'm a puppy. I'm a paranormal puppy. But we got my guy, Ed Brown.
What's going on, Ryan? Listen, man, appreciate you having me back on, man. Always fun to hang out with Ryan.
Yeah, well, Ed, we got a lot to talk about. Specifically, you and I were sequestered into an undisclosed location in the Florida region for a week. About I don't know, I guess got back a little over a week ago. So it's been a little over a week since. And by the way, I didn't talk yet, but I've had some text messages with Eric that are bonkers.
You get some good stuff.
Well, I don't know if we're going to get into it because it's, I don't know what he wants me saying. But do you remember the story he told about the RV, about what was happening to him in the RV?
Yes. Yeah.
When he was the first night after we did CE5. Well, apparently that has not stopped. As of, I think, last night or so. Anyway, it's TBD, to be determined, I suppose. But we went down to Bill and Carolyn's place to continue our I guess it's years long investigation of that Florida property.
Right.
And we got to start off with it, man. I've never heard your voice the way I heard it when you described this, what happened to what you witnessed.
So I know I probably sounded like an idiot on the radio because I was like, it's hell, I don't know, it's a ghost, right outside the street. So, yeah. Well, it was funny because, and I don't know how much, if you mention a topic and you don't want me to talk too much on it, just kind of give me some little clues or whatever. But I had gone in, you and everybody else was outside, and I'd gone in to get something off the table. And as I was walking back through, the homeowner, she said, she goes, Ed, will you look at this? And I said, sure. So she hands me her tablet, and I'm standing next to her. She's sitting in a chair, and I'm standing up. And so I'm looking at it, and she's talking about orbs flying around. And you know me, Ryan, I'm not a big orb guy. It takes something special to convince me something is an orb, because there are bugs, insects, dirt, dust. There's so many things that can cause that look, that I'm just skeptical of orbs. So I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, maybe it's dust. All of a sudden, right in the middle of the screen, this light shows up about the size of a baseball. And then this light expands into like a 6-foot diameter light, just this huge light. And then it morphed into a person. I mean, literally head, shoulders, arms. I couldn't, I couldn't tell male, female, or whatever, but it was a person, it was a spirit, and then it just, as quickly as it did, it morphed back into the giant light, shrunk down to the baseball size light, and disappeared. And I'm like, I asked her, and it's okay to curse on the show, right?
Of course.
All right. So I'm going to be honest. This is what I said. I said, what the fuck did I just see? I said, I was like, can we rewind this? I gotta see it again. She goes, it's not being recorded. And I go, record everything, record. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, I gotta let them know this, like, literally is happening right now, just outside the Sugar Shack, So I get on the radio, and I'm like, there's a, hey, Eric, there's a, there's a fucking ghost right outside the Sugar Shack right now. Like, what do I say, And I'm like, so I was, and I'm still kind of reeling from it, because I I've thought about it, and I think what happened, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, because this isn't within what I normally think, but what if that was a portal that opened up and something came out and then the portal closed? You know what I mean? Or something went in. Who knows? I don't know. But it just happens to be right where they say there's a portal, And that's the craziest thing I've ever I just can't. I can't rationalize it. I can't put it in my head.
Well, I was talking with a friend of mine earlier today, just a comedian friend of mine from Los Angeles, Brent Weinbach. Very funny, real weirdo, right? And
Right.
anyway, we were in. So he's like, "What have you been up to?" So I started telling him some stories, and this story came up.
Mhm.
And I go, "You have to understand something about my buddy Ed. My buddy Ed, he believes that things are real, and he believes people's stories, but he doesn't believe in the thing fully until he sees it. He doesn't think
Yeah.
people are liars, and he doesn't think all this is make believe, but he can never admit to himself something is completely real until he witnesses it. And I think a lot of people probably can relate to some degree to that way of thinking, right? And
Right.
so, and I say when he finally got outside, I've never heard his voice the way I to call it a tremble isn't accurate, but there you were definitely rattled, like in a way,
I
not
was
like you're
confused.
yeah, it's not like you were scared, rattled, but you were rattled like you didn't understand what was happening. And
That's exactly what it was. I was confused. I'm like, what? Seriously, what did I just see? How do I
yeah,
rationalize that? So yeah, that's good. Good example.
and you could hear it in your voice because I'd never heard your voice that way. And I'm trying to remember, Eric was doing a solo investigation for his live stream in the Sugar Shack that night. I thought,
Yeah, he
yeah,
was
right.
he was just about to start it. He hadn't started it yet, I think, when that happened. But yes.
Oh yeah, so anyway, we get down there. I think we go down there immediately. You come out and we go down there. And it was so funny because you were so rattled and like you were so put beside yourself from what you had just witnessed. You were walking around the gate. I think my car was maybe still down there. I can't remember. Anyway, and you're just, or I think it was gone at this point. I'd moved it up,
It
and
was. It
you're
was
just
fine.
like,
Yes.
I've been telling everybody the Sugar Shack is where the action is here. I've just been telling everybody. I was like, okay, we got it. We got it.
Hey, wait a minute. For the record, that's not my voice. All right.
Yeah. But it
Ryan's a
was,
funny comedian. He's not a good impressionist.
but it was really funny.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so,
that's good. Yeah.
but there is something to be said. There's some context to be given to this story, right? About that location and that night vision, the security camera, right? You want to tell everybody about that, the context? You want to?
The are you wait a minute, say it again? What
Well,
do you want me?
this isn't the first thing that was on that security camera in that
Oh no,
location.
from night one. Are you talking about what we saw night one? And there was several of us that saw that. It wasn't just me this time. But the very first night we were there, we were outside looking at the exact same camera on on the pad, and it was something very low to the ground. It was almost like a snake or maybe a baby alligator. And for the record, there's no alligators in that area. It is Florida, but it's nowhere near alligators and way too cold for snakes. So there was no snake, no alligator, but that's what it looked like on film. But it went across the driveway, kind of wiggled its way across the driveway. And the driveway stand, by the way, and that's going to be important in a second, but it wiggles its way outside across the driveway, went off the driveway, and then just kind of turned into steam or whatever and just disappeared. It just poof, gone. I'm like, well, that was weird. And we went down and looked, and there was no print, no markings on the ground, nothing. There's nothing that just makes no sense. Makes no
I did
sense.
see that, and I was one of the people witnessing this. And I'm not sure if it was recorded or we all watched it in live time.
We watched it in live time because at that point, I said the same thing. I said, can we rewind this? And she said, and Bill said, no, it's not recording. And I'm like, and I said the same thing then. Oh man, record everything. And I understand they have an issue with, memory, and they have a lot
Because
of cameras.
they would have to be recording 24 hours a day with all the weird
Right.
stuff that's happening out there.
Exactly. I mean, just hit record for an hour, from time to time. You'll get something eventually,
Yeah. So, I mean, it is interesting when you say the pad. We were watching this on an iPad. I mean, because I think for the most part, most people know, but just in case you don't, when you have these surveillance cameras, whether they're Ring cameras or otherwise on your property or your front door, you're able to live monitor what the camera sees as it hooks up through your Wi-Fi. So we were watching a live feed of a security camera that was down at the bottom of the driveway, pointing down the driveway around this bend And so right behind the camera where you cannot see, maybe 15 feet, is the
Yeah,
sugar
it's
shack.
that, right.
So, and what's interesting to me about this is, well, there's lots of interesting parts about this story, not the least of which is you know, a full body apparition, which is number one on my list of all things to see. It's like 1A and 1B is Sasquatch, right? So those are like the of the two things you can see in the world of the paranormal to me. It's like a full body apparition or a creature with. So these are the top of the food chain in my book. But that location where this portal is new to us. We thought there were two portals on this property, one at the bottom of the hill in the back and one on the side of the house somewhere in that side yard, which we were not able to fully identify at this point, which we'll have to later. And then through through this new prototype ITC device that Matthew Jackson brought, we think that there might be 6 portals on this property, if not 5. And Carolyn said, well, there's at least 4. I've always thought that. And I had never heard that before. You said
Right.
you weren't sure if you'd heard that before, but I thought there
I
was
had
2.
heard, I had heard 4 or 5, and not to bring up bad memories or whatever, but I think it's important to also note that right where that stuff happened, where we were on this trip, we saw that on their security camera, is also the exact spot where something screamed at you. And I know if people go back on your show, they'll know the story.
Well,
But
yeah, I was going to bring that up.
oh,
Yeah, so don't worry about talking about that. I mean, I've covered that, ad nauseum, I think to some degree for people who listen to the show every week. But I think for people who might just be jumping in, I believe it's 30 or bonus 73. I can't remember exactly, but just Google through my episodes, Encounter with a Sasquatch, and you'll find my retelling. As soon as I got back to Los Angeles, I'd record an episode about my experience there, and you can go back and listen to it. But yeah, it is, to me, it's not a coincidence that there's potentially a portal right there.
right, right.
And well, on top of that, I mean, because my story, if we're to be honest, it is one of so many that it happened in that spot, in that area. And so it seems like a hot spot for sure on the property, and there's a reason for that potentially, and it's because there's a portal right there, maybe,
Right.
right?
Well, it I the only difference is the portal supposedly is kind of off to the side, but what I saw was literally right in the middle of the driveway, right smack dab in the middle of that light that just opened up. That was right in the middle of the driveway. And yeah, I I don't know. I don't know what I saw. I can't if I'd have just seen a figure walk through, I'd have said, okay, maybe I saw a spirit or saw a ghost. Great. But the everything that happened, it was like, what in the hell? I was very, very confused, and I wanted Eric to know right away that something was going on outside, and I know I sound like an idiot on the radio, but I just had, how do you say it,
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure actually, because I haven't had a chance to review footage, but I'm not sure. I'm thinking somebody had to be recording when that came through on the radio. I mean, there's definitely me being an idiot later that night. That last night was actually pretty active as far as
Yeah,
just
yeah,
weird
it
stuff.
was.
I mean, not to mention all the gunshots that we heard, the pop, 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 and I was like, wow, I'm running, actually with Billy running
Towards it.
towards the
Towards.
gunshots, which hey, I really pushed myself outside of my comfort zone on this trip. When it came to being down at the Sugar Shack at night, the 4 of us, and then Billy wanted to go flashlights off, so we went flashlights off, and I'm staring at the exact spot where that creature was.
I actually have this Billy with me, by the way. Let me just introduce everybody to Billy.
Hey everybody.
That's
So I
Billy.
got Billy with me now. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
funny because Billy had an experience the day the first minute we got there. I guess maybe not even an hour and a half earlier, there was a major experience that Billy had on the property. But I'm trying to see here. I'm trying to see how long we've been going. I think we might have to take a quick break here. Let's take a quick break for commercial. I'm gonna throw some commercials in here, as per my agreement. And so then we're going to be right back with Ed Brown talking about Florida and who knows what else we're going to get into. And just as a reminder, patrons can get ad-free interviews for $3 a month. It's $3 a month. You help fund trips like we just went on, for me to buy equipment or things like that. So patreon.com/Ryan Singer. We'll be right back with Ed Brown. And we're back. Okay, so I got Ed Brown with me. We're talking about Florida. We got Billy in the car. We got Billy McClure in the car as well. I think what I want to do right now is I want to expand on this a little bit more, the sighting that you've had, because you primarily, for those of you who are new to this show, might not know. So let's give everybody what your what the bulk of your background is in the world of investigation and being out in the field.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Bigfoot hunter primarily, and that was basically my job on this adventure was to be there for any kind of Bigfoot evidence, collect evidence, or do whatever, which we did, by the way, off the door, which we're pretty excited about that. We saw a lot of things that could have been prints, maybe not, maybe they were, maybe they weren't. A recorder disappeared, so the Bigfoot aspect is where my background comes into play, and that's primarily what I was there for, I believe.
And when it comes to, and now you're no stranger to haunted locations or locations that have paranormal or unexplainable high strange activity, though.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I delve into all of it, so, but that is where that's what I'm known for, is the Bigfoot stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, you host conferences, all kinds of things. Well, but it's interesting too, because the more you get into any aspect, I think, of the paranormal, the more it gets into you, right? And it's like a variation of an old saying, but it is interesting because I came into 2019 when you had set up the original expedition at this location. I was there as the paranormal guy,
right? Just
in case paranormal stuff started popping off.
And we didn't need you then either. You didn't need me this time. We didn't need you then, but I'm glad you were
there. And so what's interesting is we did have a lot of Bigfoot stuff in 2019, or a lot of creature stuff, a lot of animal creature feature stuff, and there was some paranormal stuff happening as well. And this time, the intention of the investigation was mostly paranormally focused. And I mean, that was the intent going in. And I feel like, we kept getting pulled outside, for various reasons. I felt like, even though we were there to be inside, and, the way things play out, you have to go with the investigation, right? You have to see where the investigation leads you. I mean, I don't know. Is that too optimistic to think? I think that's one thing to show up with a plan, right? And we had an itinerary, but it's another thing to understand the reality of what it's like to be on an investigation. And for people listening who have never, I'm guessing a lot of the people listening, or at least a handful, have never been out in the woods looking for Bigfoot or other cryptids. So can you lay it out for us? When you do an expedition that is primarily focused on trying to capture physical evidence of some kind of a creature like Bigfoot, does the exact same thing kind of happen?
Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to back up for just a second, right? And just explain that the last time when we went looking for Bigfoot, we didn't have cases and cases and cases of paranormal equipment with us either, so a lot of the stuff that we got that were paranormal on this trip, we wouldn't have gotten even then, because we didn't have that kind of equipment. Those things could have been happening. We didn't even know it, So, and as far as having an itinerary, Ryan is so detailed that the itinerary actually said at 7:04 and 13 seconds, you take your first bite of dinner. At 4 seconds later, please take a sip,
Yeah,
wash
please,
that down.
yeah, wash that
So
down. Don't forget to chew 30 times.
right, right, right. Yeah. So right, yeah, sorry, I was getting a call. Sorry. But no, I'm kidding. Ryan is very detailed and he had a good itinerary. And, but what I am a firm believer that if you go into something with a preconceived notion of what you're going to find, then you're going to find that. That's going to happen. If you go looking for bears, I don't care, even in, you know, somewhere where there aren't bears, you're going to find evidence. You're going to say, a bear could have done that. A bear could have done that because that's where your mind is focused. You're hyper attentive to a specific thing, so everything leads you there. But what we did on this investigation was, even though we had an itinerary, was we came in with the game plan of we're going to follow the evidence. Whatever happens is where we're going to go. This time we were much more prepared, especially for the paranormal aspect. And we still did Bigfoot stuff. We just didn't find any Bigfoot evidence, at least I didn't think so. So I didn't see anything specifically that would have created that. So you have to go in. If you're not doing that, then you're going in working a hypothesis and you're not researching. If you're researching, you're going to follow the evidence. If you're going in with a preconceived notion, then you're working a hypothesis, and there's a big difference.
Yeah, and it's much harder. Good luck controlling the elements,
Right.
as if you were in a lab. If you're working a hypothesis. Now we did collect physical evidence. We collected DNA. I'll fill everybody in on that later once the further steps are, once we've been contacted about further steps with that. But I do think, and then there's also this LiDAR thing on the new phones. I mean, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I gotta get, I'm just like chomping at the bit to get because I'm, rocking that iPhone 11, which who knows I don't think it works. Maybe it does, but, because these new iPhones and with their cameras and lenses, they can do augmented reality, all kinds of stuff. So I can't wait. I mean, it's such a great tool to have in the field if you think you come across a track, right?
Sure.
What's interesting too about this location is you never know what you're going to get from one day to the next. There's, strange noises to be heard. There's critters everywhere. There's a decent amount, 25 plus acres of woods to explore. There's reports of orbs. We have lots of firsthand testimony, eyewitness accounts of orbs. We had friends of the family came over for dinner one night, and we shared stories, and we mostly listened to their stories, and they were remarkable. And it makes you understand that the possibilities truly are endless.
Right.
I'm curious if during this, I want to talk to you about CE5 a little bit, because we did CE5. I think it was the second to last night, and the next time we're there, we're doing CE5 the very first night, because I mean the way things were bonkers that very last night. It was the same thing at Post Town when we did CE5 there, and Eric, I think, referenced it while we were there. But you start off with CE5, and then just who knows what happens, and then maybe even just do it each night. But to open up the line of communication really gets going. But you hadn't done CE5 previously, right? I just want to hear a little bit about your experience with that.
In the CE5, you're referring to what we did the night before the last, or are you talking about the?
Yeah, when there was the four of us. It was Eric,
Gotcha.
Billy, myself, and you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very and I don't know the terminology, so I'm learning this as I go. But I was very relaxed. I kind of felt myself, kind of being taken away, if you will. I didn't. I know everybody else, other people were talking about the lights and things like that. I didn't see that, but I did kind of feel like I was, floating in space, looking at the universe, which was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool feeling. Yeah, very relaxed.
Yeah, and we were doing a guided meditation. I led us on a guided meditation where we blast out to the edge of space and we come back to kind of let everybody know where our, set up our beacon, and so we can kind of let everybody know where we're at to come find us. And what's interesting is, and at the end of the meditation, at the end of doing crop circle sounds and things like that, I I set an intention for contact, and it's got to be an individual basis. And I said, I I am looking for visual contact, or I'm looking for audible contact. I am not looking at this time for physical contact. So that is not what I'm doing here. So, and then we also set an intention, for only friendly, peaceful, loving entities to come interact with us. And then, so we went around, and everybody else said, "I'm good with every kind of contact there is," right? And
That's what I
and I
said.
remember I just remember sitting there thinking to myself, "Oh boy, the the potential ramifications of putting out an invitation such as that is not lost on me." And then the next day, we have what I think has all the hallmarks of an abduction story by one of us. And then, and then again, a week and a half later, there's a follow up experience that also has the hallmarks of a second abduction story from. I'll just say it was Eric, and so I got to get him on here to talk about this, because I got to talk to him, because I want him to start examining his body before he goes to bed, and then looking at it when he wakes up for markings. But so there's a good buddy of ours, Greg Feynman, on a different investigation altogether, and I've been staring at his face for a week now since I've been back going through all that footage. So I'm really fresh on that, on everything that's going on that story. And right now I'm at the very end of the interviews, where he starts talking about all the different abductions. And I'm curious if you think the the abductions are tied to, this is I'm kind of crossing our streams here.
Sure.
But in that investigation, the tall grays are interlaced with Oma, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and it's believed to be an interdimensional nature. Now, did you think that doing the CE5 would do anything other than maybe UFOs or orbs, or did you think it would open up our contact maybe with Bigfoot or with ghosts or the other spirits or entities there?
Well, I had never heard of that procedure or that experiment before, so that was the first time I'd experienced it. And to be honest, 100% honest with that, I had no expectations going in. If I did, it would have just been ufology and alien type of responses. I would and I even said before, if you recall, I looked at you and I said, and this goes back to what you said at the very beginning of the show. It's like what happens if somebody doesn't 100% believe in this stuff, and I was being, I know I cut up, and I know I have, I try to make fun of everything, but I was being serious, because I didn't want to ruin the experience for anybody else if by me being skeptical would affect that. So I, it goes back to, again, but I explained I am open-minded, and I want to experience it. If something's going to happen, I want to experience it. And so I didn't really have any preconceived notions going into it. I wanted to wait and see what happened and then create my own. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, I think that's a good way to approach it. And yeah, I mean, I think if everyone were to be 100% honest, unless they'd had experiences with the CE5 protocols, I think they'd be lying if they said there wasn't, 0.01% of them that was like, "Is this all bullshit?" You know what I mean? Right.
Right.
And, that's just because that's the world we were born into.
Sure.
And so to fight against that and to ignore it, I think is kind of silly. Right. So to be honest and open about where you're at on something, going into something like CE5, I think it's all, like in like great dramatic movies, there's always like a moment of comedy that kind of happens at like it's like the release valve, all the pressure gets released. Right. you need to release the pressure of like, I mean, because I know when it comes to CE5, I mean, and we joke about it when we were there, but I was like, I'm thirsty for some orbs, dude.
Right.
I'm like, I really want to see some UFOs zipping around. I want orbs flying around my body. You know, I mean, I want to like see them,
Yes.
and so it's nice to like let the pressure off a little bit and just be like, okay, well, if it happens, it happens. And I'd love to experience it,
Right.
even though I haven't yet. And um, I mean, I really want to experience it, but at the same time, I try to tell, like when I do it by myself somewhere, I'm just kind of like, hey, if I'm not ready for this, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Right.
not going to take
Right.
it personal. Um, but I'm curious when it comes to like a location like where we were in Florida with the interconnectedness of all of this phenomena, apparently. Bigfoot, ghosts, UFOs, orbs, spirits, entities, I mean, just whatever, portals. Um, where are you at right now on like just the overall? What's the nature of the phenomena in general? Specifically, I want to talk about Bigfoot here.
Yeah. I mean, look, there is a plethora of evidence on that property, and uh, God, there's things I want to say, but I probably shouldn't, but there are a lot of things that's happened there. There's a lot of researchers who have been there. There are people who have been there who refuse to go back there. This isn't a, hey guys, we're just telling you this. You got to take our word for it. This has been, you know, all we're doing is verifying what other people what have happened to other people, and on this specific adventure, we didn't run into, at least in my opinion, other than the nose print. We didn't really have a lot of Bigfoot related stuff. In my opinion, we saw eye shine, but again, like you said, there's deer, there's critters, things like that. We heard a lot of noises. Um, I I saw things this time that I certainly didn't expect to see, and would not have been on my radar coming in. Like you said, I wanted to. I didn't think I've even said this. I really want to experience the orbs coming out of the woods and coming up to. I want to experience that, and I think what I ended up seeing topped that by a mile. So I'm definitely not leaving. I didn't leave disappointed. My experiences there. I don't know. Maybe disappointed is a good word because I didn't get answers. I got more questions. So that's disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the nature. I was just talking about this the other day with somebody. That's just the way it is. And I mean, when I saw the light on the front porch after Billy did,
Oh
it
yeah,
blinked
yeah. I
in and
forgot
out.
about that.
And there's a detail about that I think is important. I don't know if I shared with you when I saw the light kind of blink in and then blink out, kind of like a long blink, kind of like a flicker almost blink. It was a bright white light, but underneath it was a very tiny pinpoint blue light.
Hmm.
So that's why I thought it was like a security camera thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
because you know
right.
how they have like the white floodlight on them, and then they also have like the power light or the whatever that's like a pin, or that can blink. So that's why I was like, "Where's the security camera up there?" Like, it had to be
Right,
that
right.
blinked in and out. And I've never seen anything like that, and I don't have any explanation for it. And it all happened so
It's
fast
crazy.
right after Billy had seen it that it was just kind of like, oh shit. And this is all happening that last night, right? And to me, it's the purpose of us being out there is to try to find answers for them. And I
Sure,
feel like we were able
sure.
to. I feel like we were able to identify a couple things and provide clarity on a couple things. And I think we'll be able to provide clarity on other things once we go back, hopefully end of summer. But I don't know. I mean, there are more questions. I don't know what's the biggest question for you out there.
Um, I honestly is how do we help them? We get answers to our questions, with using the specific devices. But then what do we do with those answers? You know what I mean? You know, I think we proved beyond a shadow of a doubt on this trip that something's going on. There's no question. that something is visiting them. You know, there's in my mind, there's no question whatsoever, 100%. But why is it so many different things? You know, like what's the purpose for each individual mystery? You know what I mean? I mean, there's so many different genres meeting at like this intersection, and like why? You know, why there? What's the purpose of all the different genres meeting at once? You know, and there has to be an answer to that, and I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like paranormal Rome. You know, all roads are leading there, and I have my suspicions, and what I think is, partially the answer to that question, and that's, one of the homeowners is because she's there, and but I think we were able to identify at least one of the spirits, as I think as confidently as you can identify any spirit at a place, like by
Right.
name. I think like what we got with at least one of them, that is, I think, as good as you can get when it comes to, we know for sure who we're talking with here,
Right.
just over and over and over and over again. So, and then getting a full name. So I think that was productive. I think it was productive also in giving confirmation about more than just the two portals. And I told you this, I texted you this, I think the other day, about how my biggest mistake all week was not trying to ask questions to the portals themselves.
Right.
And it's just like, we think we've kind of got an edge on how to activate, or at least make one of them start making everything go wonky. Because at that one point, the main portal in the backyard, it had like 4 things happen simultaneously with different people's equipment. It was crazy.
Right.
Now, if we can just talk to that portal, I think it was you last night. We were texting late at night. I was like, what if it turns out that this portal's name is Janet, and we just needed to talk to her, and she'll tell us everything we need to know? And it's just like, that would be amazing, right?
Sure. And I'm not to that point yet, personally.
I know. I'm like trying to drag you. I'm trying to drag you into this.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I'm not there yet. But I will tell you that if I can just mention this one piece of evidence we got, that to me, if this is the only thing we picked up on any equipment, was enough for me to say, okay, something's here, was when that Matt's device,
the prototype device,
said house guest brought cigars. Now that blew my mind, because there's number one, that's just too random. And number two, nobody really knew. And it wasn't that I was hiding it. Just, I think I might have said something to you earlier, but nobody really knew about that. And it's just something Bill and I do, or the homeowner and I do. And I'll stop and get cigars. And when I get there, we go outside and sit on the deck and we catch up smoking a cigar. For this piece of equipment to say house guests brought cigars out of the blue was like, wait a minute. That's just too random. There's no way, that just still blows my mind.
Yeah, it's a very random sequence sequence of words. What's very compelling about it, when reviewing that footage, now, to be clear, so people listening understand, I think I talked about this in last week's episode, but this was an ITC session that Matthew Jackson conducted the very first night on the property from one of the guest rooms, which is also the office, which is also Bill's office. But there's 2 spare beds in there. And so people stay in there when visiting sometimes. Now those responses came not asking a question about who's here at the house and what did they bring gifts, and it was so like so it's not like he was, or we were listening for that answer, right? And then to have that be back to back,
right? Absolutely insane. Yeah, it's just
really, really compelling.
And let me point out that, just for those naysayers, because I know they're out there, I didn't know Matt. Matt and I had never met until that day. I didn't know Matt. Matt didn't know me. We didn't know each other. It wasn't like we've never communicated. We've never had a conversation ever. And then he's in there doing that by himself, and he gets that. I mean, are you kidding me? That's still just mind boggling to me. I don't get it.
Yeah, it was really cool. And it's easy to be, I think Billy and I were talking about this, but at a place like that, you get spoiled with hits. They might not be grand. Every one of them is not a grand slam, but
Sure.
you get enough singles, you're scoring some runs. And
Right.
the things that were happening all week long, if we would just took one of the days and that was our total results for the investigation, I would have been like, this was a successful trip.
Sure.
And so like trying to wrap the brain around it is can be a little bit difficult. It is, I'm really glad the way it all worked out. I was hoping that we'd have the Dans with us. Unfortunately, we didn't get the Dans on this trip or our buddy Alex, but next time we'll see what happens. But the idea that Eric and Matt were able to make it, both of them, who, between the two of them, I would argue, unless you're talking about a paranormal group, right? A group of ghost hunters in some town where there's like 9 people and they all get together every other weekend or once a month or whatever. And they've accumulated a bunch of equipment together that they use. We're talking about individuals. The two individuals that could have been there,
right,
who have the best toys and gadgets and actually like legit equipment, right?
Yeah.
And we had both of them there at the same time, which it really tickled me that it worked out. And I wasn't sure. I knew after the week was over that people would be able to like fully appreciate that, but but it wasn't lost on me. Like leading up to it, I was very giddy about this, and especially when I realized how much Matt brought. And
both of them.
Yeah.
Holy
and
cow.
It's just, there was anything you could ever hope to use on a paranormal investigation, for the most part, we had it. And I mean, I can't think of anything else other than my dowsing rods, but like, I think that might be the only thing we didn't have is like dowsing rods, like the oldest of the old school.
Suge Nasty left stuff at the Sugar Shack and didn't even, it was like, oh yeah, I was wondering where they went. It's like, no big deal.
Eric Connor's new nickname is Suge Nasty. Ed is Nasty.
Suge Nasty.
I'm Stank Nasty. And what was Matt?
I don't remember. I got stuck on Suge Nasty.
Yeah, Suge Nasty, and Stank Nasty. And so, yeah, it is. I mean, there were a couple things too that we debunked. There was a couple of really big things that we debunked. But let's talk about that maybe right when we go up. I'm gonna have to do another commercial break here. And just as a reminder, for $3 a month, you can not have to worry about commercials. Wouldn't that be nice? So patreon.com/Ryan Singer, $3 a month. And there's footage over there. I'm posting stuff over there for patrons only, sneak peeks about what we're talking about. There's even a photo of the nose, the alleged nose smudge over there, I believe, that you can look at. And and I do want to talk about the recreation that we tried to do of that as well. So we'll be right back with Ed Brown. Okay, we're back. And to patrons, we never really left, did we? So anyway, so I hope those commercials weren't too bad. You can always just click the fast forward button. Don't forget that. But let's talk about the recreation of the nose smudge.
Your sponsors are going to love that you just said that, for the record.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure they're listening, and I'm sure every one of them listens. They're diehards.
There's some guy at the disco going, "What the hell did he just say?"
I got an email from them the other day, like, "Hey, you selected that you don't want like highly controversial ads on your podcast." Like I think I said no. I didn't want like people have to listen to any political ad or shit like while they're listening to the show, right? From anybody, right? Or like I think firearms or tobacco, I think were the 3 ones: politics, guns, and smokes or something. Anyway, so they emailed me and they're like, but you could make a lot more money though, because the election cycle's coming up. And I was like, fuck it, let's do it. Let's do it. So yeah, just fast forward through that stuff. I have no idea, because I have no idea what those commercials are even saying. Anyway, so we tried to recreate the nose smudge, and we used me. We should have used probably multiple people's faces to do this, but we created. Could you hear that?
I didn't hear it, but I saw your reaction.
Oh my
What are you hearing?
God. It sounded like something just beat on my car outside. Give me 1 second
Well,
here.
I know where you live.
Yeah, I don't think anybody did that. Anyway, it's probably the HVAC, because I want to talk about, because we're getting ready to talk about, we're just getting ready to talk about the banging on the house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then that's not a noise I've heard here in the few weeks I've been here. So anyway, so we try to recreate the smudge, and the and we can't do it. Well, we can recreate what looks like it, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it did. It had the same texture and stuff. I mean, it had the same look. It just wasn't the same size, you know, and the substance was different, but it had been there for a couple of days. So, I was talking to Cliff and Russ, and I was like, the stuff was like, it was almost like trying to get dried up syrup off the table. It was like real dense, very thick. It was hard to collect. And Dan yelled at me, of course. He said, "You guys should have called me." Dan Butler, that is. He's like, "You
Yeah,
guys should have
yeah.
called me." I was like, "Well, you know, you
There
should
was a
have
lot
been there."
going on. There was a lot going on. I didn't want to have to like clouding it up. I mean, I should have called him on a couple different occasions, but which he's not wrong about.
Right.
But yeah, so what did they say other than did you get any feedback about that?
Um, Dan gave me some pretty good advice for something like that again, and he also gave me some good. He said I should have taken another sample off the door where nothing was. He said call that your control, and then that way, if something shows up in the other one, they can't say, well, maybe it was already on the glass, And I'm like, that makes sense, So make a control and then collecting that. And he said you can take a little bit of water on your Q-tip and dab in it just a little bit, and then take it. He goes, that'll make it a little bit easier to collect. And he goes, the water will eventually evaporate, leaving the DNA behind, so it's fine. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I said, well, nobody told me about the water.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean that's great. I mean, I'm not certified in forensics, so these are things that I've been looking up. I've been actually kind of trying to study footprints online lately since I've been back. And I think one of the, because I did find a footprint somewhere that I thought, I was like, this is a weird looking footprint. But I think I'm convinced it's an armadillo footprint, because it has like, it almost looks like a three-toed creature, right? But that's definitely an armadillo footprint because I got some photos of it and I was like, what is this? It's just, I didn't see a turkey running around. Anyway, so okay, so we tried to recreate it, and it did look, the pattern of the thing looked the same to me. Like when I smudged my nose up against the glass, and then the residue that was left behind, because I don't think I'd showered that day, it was a similar pattern, but it was probably, I would have to say half, not even half the size. And I'm 6 feet tall, and I have a decent sized nose. It's not like I'm
Define decent.
Yeah. But it's not like I'm, it's not like I'm a 3-year-old trying to recreate these. So it was very interesting. And then we found potentially another one on the inside, which I couldn't remember if it was me or not. But every time I tried to recreate it, I couldn't get it because it was also too large. But that one was on the other door on the inside, which kind of creeped me out a little bit.
And there's a history of this at the property as well. I mean, there was a handprint on the inside of the screen door one night. There was also a full facial print on the front door one time. So there's a history of that happening, and so much so that we'll just say a very popular television show at the time came out and investigated there. For that reason. So there's a history of that happening, and to find that was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I've mentioned that, a bunch of times. I mean, it was the very first episode of Finding Bigfoot.
Yes.
So it's like, um, that's how you kick off a series. You go to this guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
I mean, the
So
fact
Cliff,
that they wanted it to be the first episode,
yeah. And when I talked to Cliff about the evidence, kind of getting in, his opinion on how to how to collect it, he was like, "Well, I thought they moved." I'm like, "No, they still live there." And he's like, "Oh man, give him my love. Tell him, hello for me." And I'm like, "Absolutely," because he was very fond of them as well as the property as well. So yeah, absolutely.
yeah. I mean, hard not to be, hard not to be.
Right.
And I think one of the big things that we did that we tried to, be aware of in the moment was we tried to debunk things as they happened if we could. And which, because there's nothing worse than spending 3.5 days traveling down a wild goose chase when you could have debunked it in an hour after it happened, right? If you would have just tried to look at it objectively. And I mean, I was so ready to celebrate actual Bigfoot footage on what was it, day one, when I thought we caught the arm on, I thought I caught the arm on
Oh
camera
yeah,
hiding
yeah,
behind a tree. I
right.
was losing my mind so much to the point where I think Bill started calling it a Ryan moment when you think you have something really great and it ends up being nothing. That was now described as a Ryan moment by the end of the week, which I thought was pretty funny. Um,
Right.
now, this is something that's been bothering me ever since. But
All right.
the bangs on the last night, and the bangs were debunked the next day as a gate. And
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just, why didn't, do you remember why we didn't close that gate to see if it stopped? Why did we
I
not do that?
remember when we went outside, I pointed out the gate, and the gate was open, but it wasn't moving. So I was like, okay, it's not the gate. It's not moving, because you would think that if it were the gate, as hard as that was hitting, the gate should have been like moving quite a bit, and it wasn't. So I just kind of ignored that, and I just thought, well, if they got it open, we'll leave it open. So once I looked at the gate and I investigated it, I guess you could say, I came to the conclusion that it was not the gate because the gate wasn't moving. I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, but any of us could have went out there and closed that gate.
Right. Yeah.
Not just you. You know what I
Well,
mean?
because they
Because you
well
were
because they had
convinced
it
it was
open.
the gate. You were convinced it was the gate at the
But
beginning.
because the gate was open, that's why we didn't close it because they had it open. It's like, well, that's the way they want it. So why
Or
would we
somebody
change it?
had it open.
Right. Well, yeah. In hindsight, that's a good point.
Yeah, and it was like, but it just, I mean, that here's why that I've been thinking about that and why it bothers me so much. Because I go to sleep or I try to go to bed. Uh, that's that very last night. So all of us are in the house at this point. And Eric zonks out. And now I'm just laying there and I can't fall asleep again. And now it's 5:30 in the morning. And bang. Right on the wall, right? Like I hear it. It's that same noise. And I'm just like, God damn it. Is Bill gonna get up? Is he gonna wake up early? Even though he's off work today, is he gonna wake? He's
Right.
usually up by sometimes he's up as early as 4:30 in the morning. So I'm like, it's almost 5:30. If I can just wait another half an hour, he'll be up. I can hear him in the kitchen, maybe. And I hear like a little bit later, I hear bang. And I'm just like, God damn it, dude. And I'm like, why is it still banging? Because it knows I'm awake. And then, cut to, I don't know, 6:15 is the last time I look at the clock. And now I'm checking the weather app to see like when does the damn sun come up? You know what I mean? Because I think you'll testify. This location, this property, it's the tale of two cities.
Yeah.
When the sun is up and when the sun is down, they're totally different places, even though all kinds of crazy stuff still happens during the day, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, you mentioned that because I had a conversation with the homeowner. I told him, I said, because he asked me how I slept one night in the Sugar Shacks, and I said, it was weird, Bill. I said, I've probably slept in that thing 50 times, over the years, and I said that particular night, and I don't remember which night it was, but that particular night, I said that was the first time I ever had an uneasy feeling. I just didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel safe. That was the first time I've ever felt that way. And it wasn't that anything happened. It was just my gut, and And you learn as an investigator, you learn to depend on that feeling, and of course I stayed there for the night just to make sure.
I just,
But
I can't even. I mean, I think I've come a long way, like, and
yeah,
like just, being down there at night with no flashlight on, as we're kind of like, we're actively looking for something, holding a gateway device. So I've got all these like disembodied voice potential responses coming out right in my face and in pitch darkness. I'm just hoping not to hear the same thing again. You know what I mean? And
right,
but here's the big difference: I wasn't by myself, and so there was four of us, which is different. So it's a totally different feeling. But when the bangs happen and we're like, okay, we got to go outside now, and I my shoes were off. I was like, we're in for the night. We're done, right? Because we still had to do the dressing room investigation inside the house at
right,
this point. Next, I'm getting my shoes on. It's like 1:30 in the morning. Now we're running back outside because the loudest banging that we can hear is happening right below our feet.
right,
And it was, I was expecting, because of all the different things that had happened already. You had seen the apparition. Billy and I had both seen the light flash in and out. The gunshots happened. We were getting all kinds of eye shine, even though they were raccoons. And just other weird stuff that Eric experienced, where this large bird thing happened with him at the Sugar Shack. And there's the portal right down there. And I'm just like, something epic, something really bonkers is going to happen. And I just hope that we capture it, because my nervous system will probably be wrecked for a month. But maybe the footage will be good enough to like justify.
right. Well, you are right about how excited you got when you thought you had the arm moving behind that tree.
Oh my God, I thought I
Because
had it.
I mean, Ryan's sitting there and he's like watching. He goes, wait, what's that? And he goes, oh my God, look. He was, and it was. I'm like, what are you seeing? Well, and it's funny because what I find interesting about that is the reason we were looking in that spot in the first place. What you were filming isn't what I was looking at. You know that, right?
Yeah, and I still don't know. This is so hard to explain to people, but unless they've been in this exact situation, when you're looking deep into the woods, into thick foliage and brush, it's nearly impossible, unless you have a laser pointer, which I didn't have it on me at the time,
Right.
to understand what someone's looking at.
Right. And this was, I mean, the one thing that we look for in the field when we're doing Bigfoot investigations is we look for things that don't match what nature does. Right. So tree stumps can look like a lot of things. Tree stumps can mess you up out there, But what I was looking at, and what I thought we'd seen, what I thought you were looking at, was this figure with shoulders and a head, like hunkered down in the weeds, looking at us through the weeds, And I'm like, right there. And so I don't think it was until later that I ever realized that you weren't looking at what I was pointing out, that you were thinking I was pointing at something else, And so I don't know what you were filming, but what you got on camera was not where I was looking, just for the record. I don't think you even know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And it's strange because, I mean, we were hearing extremely heavy footfall.
Right.
And it was daytime, and there was the three of us, and we just couldn't get it. And it wasn't running away from us. If anything, it was like doing a half circle around us.
Right.
Like as if it was like trying to like herd us into the same spot.
Sure.
But yeah, when I thought I saw that arm, oh boy, I thought everything changed. I thought, like, we have video evidence of something standing up, sliding behind a tree.
Right.
We've got it. We got it. Right. And so and so my excitement was matching my thoughts. And then I proud to say that I debunked it about 5 minutes later. I think myself, I quickly debunked it. But
real quick, and you're right, and you did, and that's, I think you should be critical of your own evidence, but that there were other things, and I'm kind of going back on what I said at the beginning of the show when I said there wasn't a whole lot of Bigfoot activity, because there was the one night that we were sitting on the deck, and it wasn't until we were leaving. In fact, the homeowners had already gone in. Then we start hearing movement in the weeds. Had that been a critter, we would have heard it coming up there, doing its thing, and then going away. We didn't. We only heard it leave. Never made a sound the entire time we were out there. So why would a critter just sit there and sit still for a couple hours and not make a peep until they're gone, and then decide, okay, I'm going to wander off now? That's not natural. So whatever that was, while, at the time I'm going, it could be a possum, it could be a armadillo, it could be a raccoon, whatever. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, but wait a minute. We didn't hear it come up there. It was, all we heard was it leaving, and it never made a sound the whole time we were sitting up on the deck. So that's something that I find very intriguing. Had it been a critter, we would have heard it way before coming to us and then going away. All we heard this time was something leaving. So something was there the whole time we were there. That's the point.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember when you brought that up, and because I remember shortly after the cat door got us all, the adjustment of the cat door, and everybody's like, okay, we're all going inside now, because that scared the hell out of all of us. Okay, so let's wrap this up with a number one thing you'll do on the investigation list upon return visit.
Oh boy, I think the number one thing I'd like to do is to bring a whole bunch of memory cards and make sure that those security cameras are recording all the time. That would be my number one thing.
Okay.
Because too much happened on security cameras.
Yeah. I was going to say, if I had to guess what your number one thing would be, is that you are going to set up shop outside the Sugar Shack, and you're not going to leave except to maybe take a dump for
why leave then?
For 5 days. For 5 days, you're just sitting in front of the Sugar Shack.
Well, I think the things that happen on those cameras, I don't know if they would have happened if we were standing there. You know what I mean? So I think they were opportunities for them to do what they were doing. Eric was inside the Sugar Shack, and it makes me think of all the nights I've slept in that thing. Now I know that there's some freaking light that just shows up and something walks out of it, or becomes the light, or whatever happened. And now it's like, okay, I'll never be able to sleep as easy as I have down there ever again, ever.
I mean, I'm not going to say that tickles me to hear you say that. Other than to say that, okay, well, Ed's human. Okay. Like,
do it.
I mean, I can guarantee you that I would not fall asleep inside there, even if I tried. I mean, I did bring a bunch of NyQuil, and I never drank any of it, because I didn't want to be groggy the next day. If I only slept for 2 hours or so, because we didn't sleep very much. I mean, it was a lot of really late nights.
Yes.
I mean, I think I was averaging 5 a.m. probably bedtime, but but it was well worth it, and it was a damn good time, and I can't wait to go back. So,
right.
Obviously we'll keep people posted, and I know you'll be there when it happens, and then we'll see what happens next. But this investigation is, I'm not going to say it just started, but it's because it's been started, but but we're not done by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
So, and I think if we can target late summer for another prolonged investigation trip, we'll be in good shape.
Good. Absolutely.
And then, yeah, man, it got cold out there overnight. You know what I mean? It got damn cold.
It did. It
was like in the
was
the 30s a couple nights, which is, it's hard to stay out all night when you're freezing your ass off. But okay, well, buddy, I appreciate this. Tell Billy I appreciate him, and I'll have to get him on the pod soon, and talk about everything from that first day, and then from the investigation as well.
Yeah, That sounds great, Ryan. Just let me know, man. I'd be glad to be a part of it.
Hell yeah. I'm glad to see you guys out there running around.
Because I've actually got something that I kind of want to talk to you about the CT5 or the CT.
Or CE5.
Yes,
oh,
that
well-
we did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Give the listeners a tease, like a headline.
Okay, so you know my back condition, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't had no issues.
Wait, are you kidding me?
No, brother.
Are you fucking serious?
I am dead serious.
This isn't just like Billy woke up one day and his back was tweaked. This is a whole different thing. Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, this is 2 weeks now and nothing.
Holy shit. Okay. Well, maybe
Kind of make me jealous because I should have asked for, but no,
Right?
I asked to contact.
oh my god. No, okay. Well, I can't wait. Maybe how long are you guys on the road together?
Probably another week.
Okay. Well, maybe here in the next few days we can I can get Billy on.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
No, just text me.
Okay. Cool.
You don't
cool.
need my permission.
Okay. Okay. That's right. He's got a phone.
Yeah, he's got his own phone.
Okay. I just didn't. Well, if he doesn't have Zoom on his phone, maybe we can just use your phone or whatever.
Yeah, we'll work
something out. Well, dude, I appreciate that. Good to see you guys. Obviously if I start be able to comb through this footage a little bit and anything crazy I find, I'll be shooting over your way. But
yeah, please do.
I appreciate it. And let's remind people where they can find you on like the Big Truth stuff or anything you want to promote or what.
Sure. I mean, yeah, you can go to the Big Truth channel, which is BIGTRUTH, one word, on YouTube. My buddy Dan Lindholm runs that page. A lot of interviews I've done on there. And you can also follow me on TikTok at Ed Brown 212.
212. 212.
212.
All right. Hell yeah, buddy. Well, great chatting. Be safe out there on the road.
All right, buddy. You too, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for doing it. I appreciate it. And we'll chat soon.
Sounds good, man.